me here, and I am so moved because I don't know you, but I know you. And I, driving here, thought either I will get up and continue to weep, or I will be able to talk about the topic I talk about, which is longevity. And as it turns out, I think it will be a combination of both. So God is love, and we are love, and we were brought here today, and Peggy randomly saw me on something, and maybe months ago reached out, and the timing, so I'm really grateful. So I'm just going to talk about 15 or 20 minutes. I'm a gerontologist, meaning I am obsessed with the topic of growing older. And people often ask how in the world I ended up there. And I really think I was born into it because my mom and dad had two high schoolers, a daughter and a son, and they were done having kids because they were in their 40s. And 56 years ago, 40s used to be older. It's not now. And so my mom was feeling a little bit weird, went to the doctor and said, I think menopause is starting. And the doctor said, oh, girl, no, it is not. And so I was born then with a 16-year-old sister and a 15-year-old brother. And when people would talk about older people disparagingly, it felt personal because my dad always had gray hair since I remember him. And I didn't think that was a job, being a little young crusader for older people, but happily I went to UCLA, and I didn't know what I was going to do at that time. We used to think, oh, well, maybe we'll go to law school if you don't know what to do. So I'd put my application in, and my now husband Ben did end up doing that path, and I just was so lucky. And I was in a big classroom, and a woman went to the front and said, I'm a gerontologist. I was like, what? I elbowed my way down, and she told me, she said, actually, right over at USC, there's the nation's first program in the study of aging, because aging is biological, but also social and economic and policy and psychological. There's really so much to it. So I was very grateful to find the program, and I did my studies there, and then I taught at UCI for a long time. And at UCI, what I specialized in was elder abuse, neglect, and financial exploitation. So we created an elder abuse forensic center that was the first in the nation in Santa Ana. And as you probably know, there are incredible perpetrators of financial elder abuse who are scamming billions of dollars off good people. And there is neglect, and there is self-neglect, and there is even sexual abuse. And so I spent the first 16 years of that UCI time in that world. And I cried on my way home to Dana Point many of those days. And I thought that I would stay in that field forever, except I had a moment where I thought, wait. I'm at the bottom of a skateboard ramp, and I'm putting Band-Aids on people after they go down and endure this suffering. But we know from the research that I'm reading that there are things we could do to fortify people before they face this suffering and this indignity. Because the tragedy of old age isn't that we grow old and die. It's that the process of doing so has been made unnecessarily and at times excruciatingly painful and humiliating. And it doesn't have to be this way. And I feel like we're at a time in history where we're creating a change in the narrative around aging. And I am so grateful to be a part of that. So we in this field have talked forever about lifespan, how long you live. And our lifespans are longer. Many of us will see 100 years old, whether we like it or not. In the 1980s, we expanded this definition and started using the word health span, how long you live a healthy life. And that's admirable. We want to capitalize and live as healthy as possible, physically and with our brain, as long as possible. And so the work of Peter Attia in his book Outlive, and Huberman and all these longevity people has been good, and yet this is the problem. A long life, even a long life in good health, doesn't mean much if you don't like your life. And the quality of our long lives has been understudied, recognized. And so when I looked in the literature, it's well-being. And I thought about calling it well span, like how long you're living a life that's well. But people in my practice kept thinking I was saying wealth span. I was like, no, finances matter. So luckily, the American Psychological Association defines joy as well-being and life satisfaction. There's a beautiful book that I really recommend, more than my book, and that is the Book of Joy, that it was co-authored by the Dalai Lama and Archbishop Desmond Tutu and put together by a Jewish man. So it's a beautiful book. And they define joy, and they differentiate joy and happiness. And that was really pivotal to my thinking. So happiness, often circumstantially dependent. And because of that, it goes like this. Joy, as they define it, is more akin to contentment. It is the opposite of toxic positivity. Like, everything's okay. Like, no, it's not. And so it's really fitting for growing older, because what I know to be true of aging is that 100% of us are going to die, and that is okay, and that is natural. You haven't done anything wrong. And when I teach undergraduate students, I always say, let's start with mortality. And then I put a pie chart behind me, and it's just a red circle filled in. And I said, it's 100%. That is mortality. And, the 20-year-olds, but what we find is that before we pass away, we experience challenges. So I don't actually strive for aging gracefully, in that I've never met anyone who aged gracefully. It's not a graceful thing. There's like diarrhea, and there's macular degeneration, and it hurts, and we lose our partners, or we die first, right? So it isn't that we're trying to avoid all that stuff, and if you only do enough burpees and green juice and weighted vests, then you're going to avoid it, So Joyspan is the quality of your life. And what I found is, in the same way that the academic research points to how we fortify our physical selves, namely the acronym FACE. So physically, we know that flexibility, F, the A is aerobic exercise, the C is carry heavy things, and the E is equilibrium, so balance. So that is what we talk about a lot, and we think that that's the whole thing. Like, if you just keep this meat sack alive, you will be great. But in fact, internal strength is also something that we can do, and it groups into 4 areas. So I want to share those 4 areas with you. Despite years and years of writing, I could not come up with an acronym. I wasted probably like 5 weeks of my life trying to come up with it. And I finally was in a coffee shop writing, and I was like, it's just the words that it is. So, but you can remember them. They're all verbs because they all take work. And it starts with a G and ends with a G. And in the middle, it happens to be CA, so for California audiences. So G and then CA. Okay, so we start with the G. So what we learn of the way that you be the kind of older person that you probably aspire to be, that 94-year-old where you go, aha, is the first is grow. as humans, we are intended to continue to grow and to commit to self-development. And what hinders our continued growth as older adults is the collective narrative that aging is all decline. We have been brainwashed from the minute we were born with stories like Hansel and Gretel, where the old woman's gonna come in and she's probably gonna eat you. And then we're like, okay, good night, kids. So then you put on top of that the multi-billion-dollar anti-aging industry. That currency is fear. So the worse you feel about yourself, oh, and your muffin top and your neck and your teeth and oh, the shame of it all. When in fact, what the research shows us is that a lot gets better as you get older. But it's not lucrative, so you don't hear that message. So I wanted to give you a couple things in order to promote your growth, your G, of what gets better as you get older. First, you don't care as much what people think about you. And it is liberating. Like, I'm only 56 and I'm already getting the deliciousness and I can't wait. But I hang out with people because of my work who are in their 90s and 100s. And this continues, this liberation of expectation and that, recognizing I'm not for everyone. Hooray for that. The other thing that gets better as you get older, and this is a key one, and this really ties into our collective concern about what to do in our society that we're so concerned about. Our problem solving gets better as we get older. And the reason for this is the neurological integration of our left and right hemisphere as a result of problem solving all these years. So instead of doing it as a chart, I'm going to tell a story. I had a mentor who has since passed away, Gene Cohn, who was an MD, PhD at Harvard in gerontology and geriatric medicine. He was fabulous. And he, every Wednesday, would go and he would pick his parents, he would take his car, pick his parents up at the platform from taking the public transportation, and he would take them in his car and drive to his house to have dinner. I did that every week. And this was before ubiquitous cell phones, so his parents were both on walkers at the time. They go out and it's just dumping snow. And his dumb Harvard son is not there because he was running late. So they're standing out in the snow and they're looking around. And they look over and they see a pizza place. So they carefully go over to the pizza place and they said, we'd like to order a pizza to be delivered to our son's house. When you deliver that pizza, we'd love to ride along in the car with it. And that is the problem solving that I'm talking about. But if you believe the narrative that older is less than, you're not going to lean into those solutions because we think it's just all technology when in fact we older people have what society needs. And the hope that I think about for our nation is older people leaning into that problem solving and have the confidence and putting forward solutions. Because you know what else gets better as you get older? The potential for appreciation of connection, the appreciation that things are gray, not black and white, a greater humility. Can you imagine if we lean into our humility? Because 10,000 more of us are turning 65 every day. So it's very hopeful, even though it's been discussed as a silver tsunami, which is really negative. And of course there will be care needs, but the potential of us to lean into a new era of older, of wisdom, of humility, of appreciation of art and music. And so with the G for grow, we need to continue to grow. And one example I'll give, and I'm watching time a little bit because I'm kind of talkative, is that I have a patient who her growth wasn't the usual suspects. It was, she said, I've been a talker. I want to become the greatest listener. And that was the growth area. And so she read all these books, she watched all these TED Talks, and she is the greatest listener. And now she is quite physically infirm. She lives at a skilled nursing facility, but every time I go to visit her, people are just gathered around because they feel so heard and seen by her. And I think of that as such a great example of continued growth, that it's never too late. So, you got your G. Next letter, you can shout it out. C. Connection. Connect. We need to, for these 100-year lives, lean into human connection. So what you're doing right now and what you'll do afterwards in the courtyard, looking for the red cups. And the way that we do these for 100-year lives is that you need to be the friend who reaches out. So think of it as be that friend. So when people come to me and say, I'm not doing well because I don't have anything to look forward to, I am not included, my spouse has passed, my best friends have passed, I listen first, and then I say, tell me about how you have reached out and what you have planned. Invariably, they say, oh, well, I've never been the one to make the reservation, to create the book club, to reach out and say, could I drive you to chemotherapy, to remember it's been 5 years since your husband passed, and could we go and celebrate him? So in order to lean into the incredible power of connection, we've got to be that friend who puts themselves out there and kisses a lot of frogs before we continue to find our people. When you look at somebody who is connected and aging well, you want to say, oh, nice genes. But what we know is that between 14 and 25% of how we age and our longevity is in fact genetic. So although there is some luck, the biggest part is these small choices on how we react to kind of the hand that we're dealt. So we have more control than we think, or more options to make a difference. So we've talked about growth. We've talked about connect. Next one, adapt. So much of this is taken from the psychological well-being literature, but there was a big gap. And so I really looked into the literature that was a professor in Israel who had done a ton on adaptation. And the ability to adapt is a key predictor of how you will age. In that, every single one of us will be faced with things that we did not sign up for. And you go, what? I did not think I would have that diagnosis, or my husband, or my whatever. And so I'm writing this chapter on adaptation, adapt, and during that time, our middle daughter, who was set to go off to medical school, was diagnosed with a brain tumor. So here I'm trying to think, you need to adapt. And then I just get, hit right in the head. Adapt to that which you didn't expect. And it's not limited just to you. In this case, it was my daughter. So I went to my mentors, who were all in their 90s and 100s, and said, I can't believe this awful thing. And they said, yes, that is life. Another word for aging is living. And when you live, things happen. And it's how you show up for it. So feel all the feelings and the grief, but then the coping literature is such that there are internal and external proven methods. For example, gratitude, or sharing your pain with other people, or connecting with people who have been through a like pain. So I'm happy to report that our daughter is chugging away with that brain tumor and wasn't able to go to the one, but is going to a different school that's next to her neurosurgeon, and she gets tested every 6 months. So don't love it, but also, yes, we all have stuff right now and in the future. So the ability to adapt. And you looked at Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. And here he was in a concentration camp, and he said, regardless, I can maintain spiritual freedom. And I think that is really, so all of this is the oldest knowledge in the world, but just applied to our longevity. And then the last one is the initial, exactly, is give. Incredibly robust literature on the importance of continuing to give of yourself all life long. And when you reject the ageist notion that you have less to give, and you think that is simply not true, I will continue to give until my 105-year-old last breath. Epigenetically, our genes are expressed differently. So the last study I'll point to is Steve Cole at UCLA. He did a study of predicting how people would age, and he had, of course, the usual suspects, right? He had exercise and diet and all the things, but he put in there a question about purpose. To what extent do you feel like your life has purpose? And he was amazed that holding constant all those variables, just recognizing that you have purpose, and it's not the capital P purpose, it's little that you have something to give, and impacted in a profound way how people experience their longevity. So examples are, you have lemons in your backyard, you pick some, you go next door, I've got lemons. Or this incredible piece that she offered was such a gift to me. Like, my life has changed as a result of hearing those words. And all that you're giving every day really matters and will really impact your life and the life of people around you. So I wish you the very best Joyspan, and I'm so grateful to have gotten a glimpse into your incredible community, and thanks for having me.